Hello, everybody, and welcome to another church youth ministry storytelling. So, last week I made a video where I discussed all of my experience so far in the first half of 2020 when it comes to youth ministry. And while I was filming that video, I realized that out of all the youth services that I made, the only one not available on YouTube happened to be the only one that I did in person, which was the February youth gathering service. So I originally planned on just doing everything, with the current event recap and the message as it was, right? Just as it was intended. But then I realized, nah, that would take too long and it wouldn't feel right. So instead, I'm just gonna go over everything that happened real quick. Just a brief story time. So yeah, this is the digital recap for the February youth gathering, which happened, I believe, on the 29th of February. There you can see myself and the youth associate. I'm the youth leader. He's the youth associate, and that was just us on that day. Now, the story before we even get to this point, I showed up there about 3 hours early because I wanted to make sure that I got everything set up, and that's because I had all these ideas. I'm gonna just go quickly. We were gonna do this and that, and there was food, and I had to get the tables out, and I wanted. Oh, I broke it now. I wanted everything to be different. I didn't want the same format as always. I wanted the chairs to be in an informal way, and I just wanted it to be inviting. As I was putting up the tables, I was also scrubbing them down and spraying them with Lysol because of the flu season. This was before we were taking the pandemic seriously. I also want to bring up the point that a kid, well, not a kid, he was 17 years old. He came over and he also showed up early and he was helping me with the tables. So, Leo, thank you very much for that. But yeah, we were trying to get everything ready. I realized that the tables, some of them had crayon scribblings and stains on them, and that just looked terrible. So I made a mental note: next time, bring tablecloth, table liners, right? Make everything much more presentable. Of course, we never ended up having another youth service that was local in person in the church, but that was just a mental note. Like, it would look a lot better if it had a liner, even if it's a cheap Dollar Tree liner. But as it was, it looked very bare bones and kind of ugly. But anyways, after scrambling to get everything ready, it was time, but we couldn't get the screen to work, and it was funny because I kept saying whatever, we'll just do it without the screen, but they kept telling me like, don't worry, 2 more minutes and we got it. And so I kept like waiting and stalling, and I think we waited for about 20 to 40 minutes, which was very late. And then I was scrambling to get my notes and everything, and yeah, that hairstyle does not fit me very well now that I'm looking back on it. But yeah, that happened. So we started off with a prayer, and then I welcomed everybody, did a brief introduction on who I was and what my history was, and then the associate did the same. I'm not gonna go over that right now because this is a recap of what happened, of what was said. I did a recap of my history with youth ministries. So if you guys want to watch that, it's in the other video, the Life Gives You Lemons video. So watch that. So now I'm here, and ideally we both were gonna do a short message, but because we were running so late, we just decided I would do my message, and I did. And was I standing? I don't even remember. That was some of the turns. That wasn't everybody. We also had people on this table and that table and over here, and we also covered the current events. Yeah, I remember that. Uh, we had a couple. I'm gonna go over very quick the slideshow that I have for current events. This particular story was very popular, the one that most people had something to say. Again, little did we know that just 2 weeks later we were gonna be shut down. But at that point we were blissfully unaware. This story also, very sad, very tragic. Many people had things to say in regards to it, and there were also many natural disasters. We also, funny story about this one, I had notes for all the current events, but I lost some of them. I guess I didn't reprint it or whatever. So no, this is the big game which happens in February, right? American football. Turns out you're not allowed to say the name of this game, or even the name of the league that hosts this. So I'm putting a little censor because I don't want them to sue me or give me a fine or nothing. But yeah, I went over it very quickly, even though I'm not a sports fan. I had to go by memory because I didn't remember what happened. I mean, I didn't remember to write down the event. So this is just some of the snacks that I had. We had like vegan gluten free cookies and chips and several dips. What did we have? We had hummus. We had green salsa. We had red salsa. We had guacamole. We had vegan sour cream. We had refried beans. We had onions. And we had juice. And there was a pizza. I seem to have lost a picture of the pizza as a whole, but here's a photo of my brother eating one slice of the pizza. And yes, it was vegan pizza that I ordered for everybody. After the message and the current events, we broke off into games, and we were also showing off a movie. The movie was called I Can Only Imagine. It's a great movie if you guys haven't seen it. Why is it frozen after this? Oh, that was just a mistake of mine. So yeah, I Can Only Imagine. So that was happening at the same time we were playing games, which in hindsight, not a great idea. Either do games or do movies, but both at the same time, not a great idea if you have a small group. But yeah, overall, I think we did okay, even though I recognized there was room for improvement. And yeah, there was a little problem with the notes because we started late. I was starting to get really nervous, which caused me to stutter a lot because that is something that happens to me. I stutter. And overall, the February service went off okay-ish. I was hopeful that for the next time it would be better, but of course there was no next time because stay-at-home orders and CDC guidelines make it difficult to meet in person. And even if these orders and guidelines weren't in place, it's not smart to meet right now. So it is what it is. So I'm gonna go quickly the current events, or I'm gonna mention them. I'm not gonna go over them as I did. But what did we talk about? We talked about the U.S. Iran conflict that happened when the was it General Soleimani or something got killed, and a lot of people thought we are going to enter a third world war. That caused many people to think that there was going to be a draft. So I explained very quickly how the selective service works, the bushfires that were happening in Australia. Remember those? We covered them. We covered the earthquakes in Puerto Rico. Then we went to the February news, and here is once again the 54th big game of American football. Surprisingly, you can mention the team names and use the team colors, but you can't show the logos of the team, and you can't call the big game by its proper name. But yeah, we covered that. I already mentioned it. It is interesting how this particular event, how much red tape there is when it comes to talking about it. Like, you can talk about it, you just gotta know the rules. And yes, I knew the rules. And that actually reminds me. Earlier, I mentioned that we saw a movie. I Can Only Imagine. We saw it legally. Okay, we actually had a video license that allows us to showcase movies at our church. From a variety of different studios, as long as this movie studios is under the list, it's fine. Except for Disney, because Disney has some movies in its vault, which means you can't show them even if you have a video license from Disney. It's complicated, okay? It's complicated, but it was done. We had the video license when we showed up the movie. I Can Only Imagine. So, anyways, we covered the big game of American football. Yeah, you all know what I'm talking about. I can't say the name, but you all know what I'm talking about. Again, this particular ended up being the current event that everyone had something to say. And it was funny because the next day, which was March 1st, my brother and I were going to a convention, PAX East. And so we were kind of like, is it a good idea to be going right now? I don't know. There's a lot of talk about this, and there's going to be a lot of people at PAX East. And we did go to PAX East. None of us got sick, thank the Lord. But yeah, I just remember that being on my mind. Of course, we covered the impeachment trial. This was a very, very, very big thing. I'm not gonna go over it again. I'm just briefly touching on these things. There was this story, Prince Harry and Meghan leaving the royal family. I guess they're not really part of the royal family anymore, but yeah, that happened. Of course, a very big tragedy. I remember where I was. I was actually at a church training event when we all got the news, and we were like, "Oh no, this happened." And some people were like, "No, it's fake. It's a fake news story. It's an internet rumor." And we're like, "No, it's true." And yeah, it's a shame. But again, we're not really covering the story. The ET and locust swarm. The only thing I want to mention about this is that they were considering using ducks, bringing a whole bunch of ducks to eat the swarm, but then you will be overrun by ducks. I don't know. I know there's currently a locust swarm in India, I believe. So I wonder if it's the same swarm. And of course, we discussed the Sonic movie and how the sales were very good at that point in time. And with that said, that was it. That was the current events that we covered. But now for the message that I covered, which again I'm not gonna go into it right now. Instead, I'm gonna do it like a general overview of what was discussed. So don't expect this to be a sermon because it's not. Did I skip something? Yes, I did skip something. Anyways, lineage. We started the message with the lineage season 2 episode 28 called "The Bird Youth Ministries and Adventism." If you guys want to go watch it, I recommend you watch it. You could even do it right now. Just pause me, look up lineage season 2 episode 28. It goes over very quickly how youth ministries started in the Seventh Day Adventist Church, and so I used that as a segue. And it's a great video. Totally should watch it if you haven't already done so. So once I showed up that video, I went very quickly on how Ellen Harmon or Ellen White was 17 years old when she received the vision from God, and how she struggled like no one's gonna believe me, etc., etc. John Loughborough was he was first baptized the first day at Penance when he was 16 years old, and he became a very important preacher at age 17. Nevin Andrews was 26 years old. John Harvey Kellogg was wait, I didn't do Uriah Smith. Uriah Smith was 23 years old when he became editor of the Review and Herald. John Harvey Kellogg was a teenager when the whites found him and invested in him, and he was 22 years old when he graduated from med school. Luther Warren and Harry Fenner. I don't have their age, but they were also teenagers who decided that they were going to start the Adventist Youth Society. And that's a very excellent story. They were walking on the way. They felt like their church wasn't using them, and then they prayed under the tree, and that prayer under the tree is considered to be the first youth event in our church. Afterwards, they kept working, and it just sort of spiraled from there. They met at their house. It was just the boys. They met at their house under the supervision of the elders. Then the girls wanted to do it, but they did it separately. And so over time, many things happened that led to that. In 1891, B. McGuire started a second youth society that focused on hymn singing, testimony, scripture, and intercessory prayer. 1893, the Christian Help. This is 1907. But yeah, 1893, the Christian Help bands got started, and it will encourage young people to split wood and help others that were less fortunate in their community. 1894, Sunshine Bands were created to help the young people do missionary work. 1899, the first conference of youth societies was held. 1907, the Young People's Department was created by the General Conference, and this was mainly because there was a lot of different youth organizations popping up, and the conference felt that they needed to be unified, right? Some were splitting wood, some were doing missionary work, some were helping communities, others were meeting in attics. So they just decided, like, we need a centralized youth organization within our church. And this caused many conflicts because members in the church all felt that the youth ministry popping up across the church, there were results of evil. It's like, I don't trust this is the devil's work. Every church there's a youth movement popping up, and it is unfortunate how whenever the youth are trying to do something for the Lord, usually the biggest thing holding them back is members of the own church. Why does that happen? It's like, did youth leave? And then the members of the church are like, oh, that's the devil. But then when the youth want to stay and they want to be active, like, nope, can't let it happen. Unfortunate. But yeah, so many church members didn't see the need for the young people to have their own ministry. Other conservative members felt the devil was using the young people to divide the church. So, but the youth societies, they kept growing all over the United States and Australia and Germany, and they're all growing in different directions. And so, yeah, the General Conference decided to get involved and make a official young people's department that was more uniform and more standard. So, anyways, and a big time skip to Eliezer Melendez, who was the Inter-American Youth Director in Mexico and Aruba, and he got I guess I didn't write the whole things. Anyways, so he was a big on youth ministries, and he was sent to many places to start. He actually came up with the Spanish word for pet finders, which were conquistadors, and in many ways, his work in these areas, specifically in Puerto Rico, ended up standardizing what young youth ministries are in Spanish churches, and I don't just mean Spanish churches in Puerto Rico. I mean Spanish churches worldwide. If you're a Latino church, chances are you are following the model that he created, and I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. I think it was great in the 1950s, but I also think it's sad that youth ministries in Spanish churches has stagnated. And not just in Spanish churches, it has stagnated pretty much everywhere else. But everywhere else has their own different models and things like that. And so again, it's not me talking bad about this person who shares the same first name as me. It's more of me saying he was a innovator for his time, but then his work caused people to stop innovating, or people felt too comfortable in the work that he made that they thought we don't have to innovate anymore. And that's a shame because the young people are always changing. We can't expect young people in 2020 to be the same as young people in the 1950s. It is sad. And yeah, I believe that's the end of the presentation. Anyways, like I said, this is more of a recap. I'm not going over everything, but the funny thing is that there is a cycle. There's a cycle, right? Our church, the Seventh Day Adventist Church, was started by young people. Over time, those young people became older, and so did the members, right? It seems like the age of the members was usually on the same age as the founders. So as the founders got older, so did the members, and then the members felt that the young people didn't deserve to lead because they weren't serious enough, even though the founders were that age. And funny enough, the founders themselves were always advocating that we use the young people, but the followers, right, the congregation felt that that wasn't enough. Eventually, the overall congregation, it gets too old to lead, and then they have to get the young people to take over, and then the young people take over, and they start doing great things. But then the same thing happens. They get older, and then they feel that the new young people are not ready, and so forth. And it's a never-ending cycle over and over and over again, and it can be frustrating. And I don't know, for those of you watching, where in the cycle do you land right now? Are you in a church currently led by young people that are on fire? Or are you in a church that is currently led by old people who don't trust the young people? Or are you in the middle? Are you in that in between, like you're not young, but you're not old anymore, and there's kind of some balance? If there is, that's great. Hopefully it will last, but statistically, it's a cycle. And that's kind of what I wanted to touch on that message. Again, this is more of a recap, not me going over everything. But yeah, that was me briefly summarizing without a script what the February youth meeting was like. And again, I did stutter a lot during the. We are live, people. Totally live. So yes, as you can see, this is not scripted. But I forgot, where was my place? Yeah, this was the overall meeting in February. I did stutter a lot when it happened. I think I did better this time, even though I wasn't really trying to say the whole thing. But yeah, I guess this will show up on the playlist for the youth gatherings. It was interesting. It was an experiment that I wanted to put into place to see if this new format of people sitting down and we were preaching while sitting. We had a presentation in the back. It was meant to be more closer, if that would end up working. But the pandemic happened and everything changed. So yeah, like I said in the other video, I wanted to change how youth ministries was done. I wasn't expecting it to change this drastically, but here we are. And so, yeah, with that said, I guess I'm signing out. Have a great day, everybody, and God bless.